One is Enough by Flora. Chapter 3. Obiora's mother went away later in the morning without another word with Amaka. Obiora in turn looked unhappy, and when Amaka asked why he was so unhappy, he hushed her up. "What does my being happy and unhappy mean to you? Why won't you leave me in peace? You want me to bare my heart to you. You'd want me to tell you how my heart beats if I knew how. Woman, enough is enough. I am going to work." "What about mother? She hasn't taken anything. I didn't see any of her clothes in her room. How come she has taken her leave so unceremoniously? This is her home, and she can come and go as she thinks fit. So don't let that worry you. She will be back again soon." "Obiora, she said certain things to me which made no sense to me. Why did you never tell me you had taken another wife?" Obiora looked uncomfortable. "I have just married her recently." "But you have 2 children by her." "Yes, well, what was I to do? Remain childless because my wife is barren." "Why didn't you talk to me about it?" "Because I knew you'd oppose me and react just like you're doing now." "Should I not react, for God's sake? What do you think I am made of? Wood?" There was an awkward silence. Then Amaka went on. "All right, leaving that for one moment. Why did you not tell her about the car? You should have told her that I purchased the car with my hard-earned money for her comfort, but especially for your comfort. I thought you could have told her that, if nothing else. I did not want to mention my intervention in the ministry because that was not concrete enough. Anybody could claim that he helped you out of your trouble. But I was particularly upset about the car. If we must wash our dirty linen in public, we must not hide anything. All our underwear should be publicly washed in the open, and I mean it. You might as well say that you fed me since you married me," Obiora said weakly. "Not exactly," Amaka replied. "No, it would be untrue if I said that. But I complimented the food budget. That I did, and you know it. Tell me, how much did you give me for food? Go and ask other wives, and they will tell you how much your colleagues in the same ministry give their wives. But I did not grumble. I never asked for more. Perhaps that was my mistake, not asking for more." "You are being senseless," burst out Obiora. "How many mouths were you feeding? You barren and senseless woman. You forget that you are childless. You would not raise your voice in this house if you were sensible. You should go about your business quietly and not offend anyone, because if you do, one will be tempted to give you 1 or 2 home truths. I warned you several times when you got pregnant during our first year of marriage, but you were careless and lost the baby. It was your fault. I have made my decision and there is no going back. What mother told you will happen, not today but soon. So brace yourself for a hard time. If you are sensible, you will stay here under my protection. A woman needs protection from her husband. If you want to act as if you are endowed with all the wisdom of Solomon and get wrong and stupid advice, all well and good. You are at liberty to do exactly what you want to do. But let me warn you that if you step out of this house in protest when my wife and my 2 sons arrive, you stay out forever. You must not come back. I am not the type of man to go begging with cap in hand for you to come back. I have outgrown that. So watch your next step and be well advised. Out of the goodness of my heart, I am asking you to stay. But if you choose to leave your matrimonial home, here is the door." Saying this, Obiora stormed out through the same door. Amaka remained where she was like a statue. That was not her husband talking to her. That was a strange voice inside her husband. There was a demon, or rather demons, talking through her husband. What Christ said about demons in the New Testament was correct. When a man was out of balance, it meant that evil spirit had entered the man and had played havoc with him. No, that voice was not her husband's voice, Obiora's voice. But Amaka was not going to lose her head. Far from it. She would watch events. She believed in marriage. Marriage had sobered her, had made her tolerant and peaceful. Only her fate played pranks. God had deprived her of the greatest blessing bestowed on a woman, the joy of being a mother. Was that really the end of the world? Was she useless to society if she were not a mother? Was she useless to the world if she were unmarried? Surely not. Why then was she suffering these indignities both from her husband and his mother? She could adopt a son and a daughter. She could play mother to them. She would go to a distant place, maybe Ghana or even Zaire, and adopt a boy and a girl. These faraway places appealed to her. The children would grow up not knowing their relatives, and even when they found out that they were not her own children, they could not trace their home. She would do this. She would love them, and they would love her. Then she thought of the children of her brothers and sisters. She could ask them to send over a child each. She would look after them. They would call her auntie, and she would love them, send them to school, and really pet them. That was better than adoption. She was still very conservative. She did not fancy the idea of adoption. What about the genetic danger? No, she would rather ask for some of her nieces and nephews. She would do that. They were her flesh and blood. Yet another thought. She could marry a young girl and push her to her husband. She would dress the girl well so she would be attractive to her husband. Her husband would sleep with her and she would become pregnant. As soon as she was pregnant, she would take her away from her husband and take care of her. She would take her to the hospital to make sure. Then she would confine her to the house until she had the baby. Then what happened after she had had the baby? Would she be able to control her? She shrugged her shoulders. She did not want to control anyone. She wanted just to be. She wanted peace to go about her business, look beautiful, wear good clothes, go to the hairdresser every week. In fact, enjoy life fully. No, she was not going to marry a wife and push her onto her husband. She was merely going to get a maid and allow the maid to please herself, and if she became pregnant, claim the baby as her own. Again, the same problem arose, the genetic one. Just anyone would not do. What a life! Amaka exclaimed. She thought of her youthful days. Perhaps it was destined that she would not be married, least of all have children. Why then was she wasting her time staying at Obiora's as his wife when she knew beyond all reasonable doubt that the marriage had broken down? A native doctor she had visited at one time in Lagos had told her that her marriage would continue to elude her. He advised her not to marry. When Amaka asked whether she could have children without marriage, the native doctor was honest in saying that he was not sure. He had examined her and had called the woman from his own court to examine her. The woman made a thorough examination and told her that she would bear fruit, but she needed a special man to make her do so. Amaka was angry and stormed out of the place. She had heard before she made the visit that the people of that court in Lagos committed sexual offenses, including incest. So when the native woman doctor said what she said, Amaka's back was up. She thought that the next step would be for the native doctor himself or someone around to make advances. No, she wanted children, but not as desperately as that. Her thought wandered. Was she useless to the world because she was childless? Was she unfulfilled because she had no child? Her mind went to the good missionaries who taught her in her young days. They chose to be in the service of God rather than having a family. Were they unfulfilled as well? Should they not in their old age be happy to hear about the boys and girls they taught and nurtured as ministers and head of states in their countries? Did they not have the contentment that they had done God's work on earth and merited the kingdom of God? Was a woman nothing because she was unmarried or barren? Was there no other fulfillment for her? Could she not be happy in the real sense of the word just by having men friends who were not her husband? There did seem to be some magic about the word husband. Her people had drummed it into her ears as children growing up that a girl just had one ambition, to be married. so all energy was geared towards finding her a good husband. But Amaka knew from the behavior of her illiterate aunt and mother that they did not share in this belief of her people. Her mother brought them up to be independent, but she did not emphasize marriage. She had several children, no doubt, but her emphasis was on self-determination and motherhood. She lacked the guts to ask her formidable mother how she was going to have the children without being married. Amaka wondered how her married sisters were getting on in their matrimonial homes. They had been brought up to despise their father because he was of no consequence. He had too many wives and he was a drunkard. He was of no use to them when they needed him most, and when he died, it was more or less relief for them. It was good riddance, and they almost celebrated his passing away. Their mother was at her best. She so demonstrated her grief that she nearly convinced her people that she cared for her late husband. But she did not care. All her children knew that she did not care. The boys especially knew, and it hurt them so much that they put up feeble fights in support of their father, but they did not succeed. In the end, their mother won them over. What was Amaka going to do if she decided to leave her husband? How was she going to cope? Men would seek her all right, but would they not make fun of her? Would they not use her, and when they were tired of her, discard her? There was a lot to be said for marriage. For a man, one was able to rely on and cherish and all that. But when there was no such man, what should a woman do? Correct the man? Take second best. Leave alone. Have another woman as they now do in Europe and America, or what? One thing was certain now after the fight with Obiora. She would leave and set up house somewhere. She would live a single and respected life. No one would point an accusing finger at her and call her a whore as her husband often had. She would find fulfillment. She would find pleasure, even happiness in being a single woman. The erroneous belief that without a husband a woman was nothing must be disproved. Amaka felt exhausted. She forced herself to go about her business listlessly that day, not really knowing what she was doing. She made terrible mistakes and snapped at the man who tried to correct her. "You have overpaid me," the man said. "That's your luck. Leave me alone," Amaka snapped. "You have overpaid me by 100 naira. Do you hear me? Has something come over you? Are you well?" "What did you say?" Amaka finally asked. It was dawning on her what the good man was saying. "You have overpaid me by 100 naira. "Oh my God, is that so? Thank you, my good man. I don't feel good today. Please pardon me." Amaka left the site after this incident and went straight home. The maid was there. Her husband had returned home, eaten and gone out. She managed to eat something and went to her room to rest. She was just about to fall asleep when her husband returned. "You were not in when I returned," he began. She wanted to say to him, "How many times this week did you meet me at home when you returned from work?" But she thought better of it and said nothing. "Have you seen my mother?" he asked. "I have not seen your mother. Did she come back?" "She told you she would come back today. I hope you have prepared some food for her. As you know, she is very particular about what she eats." "The maid will take care of that. We have everything in the house," she said. "I don't want the maid to cook it. I want you to do the cooking yourself for my mother. If you don't want to cook it, I will have to do it myself or get someone to do it for me." "Perhaps you can get someone to do it for you. I am tired. In fact, I am exhausted. I can hardly get up from this bed. Just do exactly as you wish and leave me alone, I beg you." "Did you say I should do as I wish?" "I said that. You have been doing as you wished for quite some time now. There is no one to stop you from pleasing yourself. What I want you to do for me is to simply leave me alone. I repeat, leave me alone." There was silence. Then Obiora said, "Have you seen them?" "Seen whom?" Amaka replied. "My sons," he said. "No, I have not seen them. Where are they?" "My mother brought them here in the morning. You were at your site." "Where are they now?" "My mother must have taken them away again," he said. "I am glad for you, I am happy for you," she said. "Are you happy?" He asked suspiciously. Of course I am. You are not just pretending to be happy. I am happy and sad as well. Happy because you have proof of your manhood. Sad because I cannot have a baby, and your proof is also the proof of my barrenness. How you talk, it is not as bad as that, he said. It is worse than all that. Let's not go into it any further. You have not answered my question. Where is the mother of your sons now? You mean my wife? Whatever you choose to call her, I will continue to call her the mother of your sons. Where is she? You will call her my wife. She is my wife, he said. Congratulations. I thought that in this sort of thing, a wife, even a barren one, should have been taken into confidence. It beats me how you should do all this behind my back, be involved with a woman, have sons by her, marry her without breathing a word to your wife. You have changed a good deal, my husband. I too could change, you know. Meaning what? Meaning that I could do a lot behind your back without you ever finding out, she said. Like prostitution? No, God forbid. Our land forbids that. Our gods and goddesses forbid it. Our women, we women of our land abhor it. I abhor it particularly, not only for moral reasons, but because it was never cut out to be that. I could never make love to two men at the same time for money, or out of what they call love. Go on, you haven't said anything that I haven't heard from you. What would you do behind my back? Nothing. Nothing? Yes, nothing. I won't be a prostitute, that's all I know. What then? Sleep around with other men. Out with it. What would you do behind my back? What have you been doing behind my back? I am a man. I am a woman. He rushed at her. He was a very strong man. He had beaten her once during their 6 years of marriage, and she did not recover from that beating for a week. Her face was swollen, her head ached. She had bruises all over her. Obiora was sorry and contrite. For 1 week also, he did not go to work. He took sick leave and stayed with her. He cooked for her. He was genuinely sorry. He doted on her and told her that it would never happen again. That was the 2nd year of their marriage. The fire of love was still burning high. She could not actually remember what provoked that beating. There was an argument. She refused to yield because she was sure of what she was saying, and he refused to yield because he was her husband, and by virtue of that, he was right. You did not argue with your husband. A woman who tried to win an argument over her husband was regarded as a he-woman. Amaka refused to give in. She could be stubborn, so she pressed on. Then, to stop all argument, to stop his wife lording it over him, he used brute force. He beat her so mercilessly that Amaka was afraid that he was going to kill her. She raised the alarm, and by the time neighbors gathered, Obiora had taken her in his arms and was weeping himself, and he begged his neighbors to leave them alone. Amaka learned one thing from that incident, and it was that she would never helplessly watch a man, least of all her husband, beat her. She must defend herself. She arrived at this conclusion herself. So when she went to the hairdresser's one Saturday and heard a newly married girl narrate how her husband beat her up so badly that she fainted and was rushed to hospital, where she remained for 2 weeks, she said to her, "He will do it again. Men are beasts, so watch out. Think of what it was that led to the beating and make sure that this trouble does not repeat itself. If your husband was a good man, he would try to avoid that problem. But the trouble with our men is their ego. They refuse to appreciate their wives. Mind you, they do appreciate their mothers and sisters, but never their wives. Your husband will always show you that he is a man and put you in your rightful place, which is under his thumb. Your rightful place is not in the kitchen, as we erroneously think, but right under his thumb. He would like to control your every movement, and it is worse if you depend on him financially. But regarding the beating, be ready at all times to defend yourself. Never cry out when he is beating you without finding something to retaliate. So I say, fight back. Get a stick nearby. If he lands a blow on your face, get the stick and land a blow on his body. But I must warn you, never on his head or you might kill him. I once heard of a man who went about parading himself as a philosopher and an academic. He had a beautiful but senseless wife, so the story went, as if beauty and sense did not go together. This academic cum philosopher, for no just cause, beat up his wife so mercilessly that this senseless beauty learnt her lessons fast. A day came when there was another fight. Before he pounced on her like a bullfighter, she had this heavy iron rod which she landed on the man's back. The man was on the floor and wept like a child. She called in an ambulance and the husband was taken to hospital. He was there for 3 months. There he beat his wife again. Obiora never beat her again after that incident, and she, in her own way, tried to avoid any argument that could lead to a show of strength to the proof of who was actually wearing the trousers in their relationship. Why then was Obiora rushing at her now to beat her? No, she was not going to fight him. It was too late in the day. A lot had happened in the past year. Her husband had undergone so much change. Fighting now was useless. She wanted to keep up the marriage. She did not want to leave him. But it did seem to her that there was a conspiracy to provoke her so that she would leave her matrimonial home. For one thing, when Obiora told her that he had sons, she was not happy, but she was relieved. She felt peace within her. At least her husband was happy. People now knew that the fault was hers and not his. It could be painful, this realization, but it was soothing as well to Amaka, who was loving and sweet in her own way. Therefore, she did not fight back. She did what she had never done before. She ran from her husband, dashing into the toilet and locking the door. Obiora banged on the door. "Open the door, you whore. You good-for-nothing woman. You prostitute. What have you been doing behind my back? Sleeping with other men? I am going to kill you today and take your corpse to your mother, and nobody will ask questions." "You mean you have been sleeping with men in our matrimonial bed? Is that what you mean? Open the door and I will tear you to pieces." Amaka looked around the small toilet. She was really frightened now, but also very angry at such violent aggression. There was a hammer which the carpenter had used to mend the door of the toilet a day before. God bless the carpenter. He forgot to take his hammer. Nigerian craftsmen and their attitude to work. How come that a carpenter could forget his most important tool, a hammer, and for a day he hadn't missed it? She armed herself with the hammer and waited. At first, she wanted to open the door and attack her husband, but she changed her mind. Doing so would be aggression. She would wait for her husband to break the door down, then attack him with the hammer. That would be self-defense. Would the door not break? Amaka thought as her husband banged away. It must have been a strong door after all, resisting all that force. Then all of a sudden, without warning, the door was open. Amaka dodged as her husband came after her barehanded. Then she sprang up quickly and landed a heavy blow on her husband's chest with the hammer. He simply sprawled down on the toilet floor, unable even to cry out. "I have killed him! I have killed him! Obiora, Obiora, please talk to me. Have I killed you? Oh my God, have I killed you? Please say something to Amaka, your wife. Come, come. I have killed my husband. I have killed him. Come, everybody. Come, call the police. I have killed him. Don't you hear me, my people? I have killed him. Here is the carpenter's hammer. That's the evidence. I used it. I gave him a blow. I have killed him. He did nothing to me. I am a bad woman. Come, all of you. Come to save him and kill me." Neighbors gathered around, all ears and eyes agog at the dramatic scene. Then the Queen Mother sailed in, saw the crowd, and fainted. Both mother and son were rushed to the hospital by kindly neighbors.